All right. Yeah, there we go. Now we're officially live.
Hello,
Very
hello
cool.
everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. We
Uh,
have Carlos Huante. Is that the way you pronounce your name? I hope I.
yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
perfect.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I get called Huantes or Hercules or Huarte,
Okay.
haunted. And I always tell them, I go, look, there's only one of me, so don't call me Huantes. You know,
Dude, I get my name butchered in so many ways.
how do you say your name?
Mache.
It's Mache.
Yeah,
Cusiera? Cusiara.
cuchara.
Cuchara.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
from what I hear, cuchara means something in Spanish, but I have no fucking idea. Because anytime I talk with with Spanish speaking people, they always like, oh, cuchara, it means this, and like, yeah, I know, you already
So,
told me.
yeah, a
uh,
spoon. It means spoon.
okay, yeah, there you go. Well, fucking spoon. It's probably the shape of my head too. So,
You and
uh,
me both.
So, Carlos, you are if I'm correct, you are a creature character designer for film.
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
probably the way to describe your work, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder, because you are a veteran. You've been in the industry for the longest while. I would probably want to start maybe with getting starting from the beginning and get to know, like, because it's always interesting to me where fellow artists are starting and what actually push us to become who we are as an artist, like what was
Right.
and I was
Yeah.
curious what was a thing that pushed you to be in
Uh,
this.
I don't really. It's something that you were just. I just liked drawing. I
Mm-hmm.
liked music and drawing, right? Both at the same time, and I loved science also. My whole thing was I knew I was going to either be involved in as a scientist of some kind or an artist. I thought one of the two, but then I loved music at the same time. So, but I pursued music almost less because it was more like a thing that I could do, and I would just try an instrument out and I could play it, and I just kept that on the side.
Right.
So I never really pursued it as much. I did while I was a kid, but I kind of left it behind. And then but I always drew. And when I'd work at schools, coming up through grammar school, they'd always have me do the class projects. You know what I mean? So I was that kid.
Did you ever get in trouble for like drawing? Because you have a very specific style, which I really like, and I remember seeing it for the first time and getting really fascinated. I think it was, as you mentioned before the call, it was the Noman DVDs where your work started to appearing, and I
Yeah.
think that's the first time I saw it, and I was just like, damn, that guy has something going on there, because it's very unorthodox, and it almost reminds me of H.P. Lovecraft, kind of way of thinking when coming to a creature design. I'm just curious if you ever drew something, when you were a kid or something that ever got you in trouble.
No, what did I did get in trouble for drawing. I mean, I actually can't. No. I take that back. That was something else. I got in trouble for something else. No, I never got in trouble for drawing. They always liked me to draw in school. I went to parochial school,
Mm-hmm.
my grammar school years, and then I went to like a parochial high school for the first year, and then I left that and went to public high school, and then I was drawing. I mean, like the fever started getting hot in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I started to really focus, and I never really got in trouble for it at all. The only thing in high school is that they try to the instructor there. I finally took an art class my sophomore year, and she was upset because all I wanted to draw was weird things and monsters. You know what I mean? And that's all I wanted to do. You know what I mean? I didn't care about any of the rest of it.
I got in trouble so many times when I was a kid for drawing like really nasty stuff.
Oh,
Because like we always would get like on the art classes we would get those assignments. Oh, draw like flowers and buildings, and I would always draw something really really fucked up. I think
yeah,
for we're asked to do an assignment for Christmas
yeah,
cards, and I drew a Santa with like like with the saw and the shotgun and like elves being totally fucked up around him, like bones sticking out and shit. My mom was called in to the principal's office that I'm probably some psychotic little
yeah.
kid. It was always
That's
that. I
very
always
funny.
run in trouble for drawing like really nasty stuff.
I
um,
never, I was never that guy. It's weird. You would think that I would have been. I wasn't that guy. I just, I knew where to turn it on, and I would turn it on at home. And I think it may have been the idea, the fact that I had
yeah.
such a disciplined school that was so strict. I had crazy Irish nuns over us, that would break your hands, or pull your ears or your hair out, one of the two, and they had the giant paddle on the wall that was always a threat. I mean, no one ever got hit, but it was there. You know what I mean? So, crazy, super strong and crazy dad that, controlled the house. So I was pretty good kid, actually. I was pretty, I was very, I was in order. Everything, I understood the place of everything. And so I just liked drawing weird things, and it weirded everybody out. But it wasn't like, I didn't like horror. I
Right.
liked drawing weird stuff. You know what I mean? That's the difference, I think. I liked drawing weird things. But, I went through a phase when I was really young where I liked Disney a lot. So I don't know what the hell was going on with me. And I don't know what happened that it all started getting weirder and weirder.
We grow and change, I guess. It's you go through the phases of life where you get interested with different things, and I assume just that basically you evolved from a guy who likes Disney movies to a
Yeah.
guy who likes to draw fucked up things.
Well, it's because I wanted to be Disney. That's why. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
okay.
I wanted to have my own animation studio. That was my first love, was animation. I wanted to get involved in animation.
Gotcha.
Really, yeah. And it actually stayed with me because that was the first part of my career, from the mid 80s all the way up until I left and got into Men in Black full time. I went into film full time at that point, finally.
Got
But
it.
yeah, so, I still do. I still love TV animation. I love it. I mean, the old stuff. I mean, nothing new, except for Samurai Jack. You know what I mean?
Right on, right on. So I'm curious, when was the moment when was there any moment specifically that you could remember that you realized, right, I love drawings, but now I know that you can make it for a living, and or it was just like slowly progressing towards the point where you just eventually started making money, because that it's very very different for everyone I'm talking with.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine. I always knew that I wanted to do it. It was or I was going to have to do something, right, to make a living when I got older. I thought, after I went to high school, I went to community college, and I took all these classes thinking of going the way of the university.
Mm-hmm.
So I had massive classes, right? And I went to UCLA, right, and USC to check out the universities, right?
Right.
Went to Cal Arts, checked that out. Couple things I noticed right away is that none of the artists there impressed me. They all sucked, in my opinion. And then I noticed that the schools were way too expensive, and I was never going to put that on my dad because I didn't have the money, and I wasn't going to ask him for that kind of cash,
Right.
or put him in debt over it. You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking. So I thought, well, all right, my first year out of high school, I'm looking at this. This is all a joke, this school thing. I'm going to go and take a life drawing class at Art Center. And so I did. The first guy that I met worked on the He-Man animated series.
Mm-hmm.
I became friendly with him. I let him know that that's kind of what I want to do. He invited me for lunch. And I got myself a job as a runner there. And then I worked my way around a year later into layout, which I sucked at, by
Oh
the way.
wow, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I sucked at layout. I was not good. Um, I was far too creative a personality to be stuck in those kind of restraints. You know, the structure of having to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Uh, for animation and learning all the fields. You know what I mean, for all the technical stuff for animation. And the following year, I got a job on the Alvin and the Chipmunks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that job, I was hired by the main guy there, Cosmo Angelotti, to sit in his office. And what he would do is he'd get the layouts, and people would be drawing the characters off model. He would give it to me, and I'd have to make the drawings all look pretty. So that's what my job was, you know. So it was an awesome education in learning how to draw a cartoon line,
Right. Right.
the thick to thin and all that stuff, right? So honestly, then I discovered that I could actually make a living designing characters in animation, and then I got a job on the Ghostbusters animated series the following year,
That's awesome. So
and that's I never looked back after that. That was it. I was a character
perfect.
designer.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you realize, oh shit, I can make a living drawing, which I already love to do.
Yeah.
That's the moment you never go back
No,
until
no,
something
and then
horrible happens, I guess.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Um,
But I mean, once I discovered that I could actually make a living designing characters, um,
yeah,
I mean that was it. It was over.
it's kind of interesting because it seems to me, you already knew that you want to do that, and the moment you found uh, yourself in a situation where you knew you could grow into that role, you kind
Yeah,
of jumped head in, which is very very cool. I think there's a lot of times you get those questions from young artists or artists that never worked in the industry, but they are curious, like, what do I need to do in order to get into the industry? And I think one of the things, based on what you said, and based on my own experiences and based on talking with other artists, is that try to do everything you can to get the experience, and really see where you can how your art can land in there and what you can learn. I think the biggest obstacle for a lot of artists is ego. Would you agree with that? Like ego being a big issue?
yeah. I mean, for sure, for a lot. But the problem is that there's ego, and then there's nothing to back it up,
Right,
right?
right,
I mean, when I came in, yeah, of course we were all egotistical, but we knew who we were. That's
right.
why we were so egotistical, I mean, but you knew enough to bow down before the guys that were really good at something.
Yeah,
Uh, Now it seems to be ego, and it's more like the kind of like the Kardashian effect. You know what I mean? Where
the
people
millennial effect.
exactly. Okay, you say it better. The millennial effect, where people believe that they should be popular because they're promoting themselves, instead of trying to get really. And you've worked your life already, and even though nobody knows you,
Yeah, yeah,
you've worked so hard already that you know who you are. And I think that's actually the part where the ego actually gets in the way, because it's getting in the way of you doing your work. You should be working hard, at something. And it's not so much that you're egotistical, it's just that you're confident when you
yeah,
walk in.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you can back it up with your art, then you're in a good spot. I've always been saying that,
Yeah.
nobody cares what school you finished. Nobody cares how many followers you have on Instagram. That
Nope.
doesn't really matter whether you're going to get hired or not. What really
Mhm.
matters is, how is your art presenting itself? And if it's a shitty art and you have millions of followers, perfect. You can make money running a YouTube channel, for instance.
Yeah.
That's an option. But you're never gonna work in film, or you're
No.
never gonna work in a high end production if your work is
No.
not up to level that is required. You nailed it. You nailed it perfectly. It's like the pursuit of being popular versus versus trying to really get the mastery of your work out there. I
Well,
think it's
loving it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's really important to really distinguish those two. One of the things that I've started doing personally is limiting the amount of social media I have in my life, because it's one big distraction. And I get it, like if you want to be a personality out there and use social media to become more popular, if that's your thing, then perfect. It's like that's basically your then that's basically your pursuit for life, like
Right.
being popular is probably more important than creating work that is expanding, getting better, and eventually reaching that mastery level. I feel like it's really hard for some artists to understand that the amount of likes you get doesn't really translate to whether you're going to be working or not. It's kind of
No, yeah. And that's the whole thing too. There's some things in there, like even in what you were just saying, that people take and they twist around. And for example, just the idea of mastering what you do, right?
yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're a master. Mastering it means that that's a life. That's a life. That's a lifestyle. Mastering, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you ever master anything. I mean, the idea is that, and also, you're not trying to be a master like the guys in the Renaissance, but you want to get to that level
Yeah.
of what it is that you do, right?
Exactly.
And today, people are copying each other rather than trying to find the mastery is finding what is unique about yourself and pursuing that and trying to come up with something that is unique to you, right?
Yeah, find
And
your own style and find your
well,
own muse
well,
in a way.
well, it's you don't find because you don't have to make an effort for your style. You just have to be yourself on paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the way to do that is by shutting off influences to a degree and putting your own work up in front of you. And look at what your mistakes were and look at what your successes were, right? And then you find something there that is you.
Yeah.
And you fall in love with it and you find yourself. But no one talks about this stuff. That in particular is not being talked about. Instead, people look to achieve what someone else is doing and they think that they're successful because they just did what that guy did. Well, that guy worked his butt off to get that simple.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now you just went and ripped him off.
Yeah.
That's all you did. That's all you did. Because that guy, there's a lot of effort to simplify all your thoughts and come up with a simple line and a little tweak at that line, even. That is you, right?
Yeah.
And even compounding the way volumes work, right? And whatever shapes they are. And I'm talking layout or characters, whatever. But to try to come up with that whole combination, right? That is unique to you, your own way of talking. I mean, this is the way that you're talking on paper or creating imagery. That's your vocabulary. And then someone just comes by and takes it. They're insincere. That person that just did that is actually a liar in front of everybody. They're actually speaking someone else's language that they invented,
Yeah.
It's not their language. They're ripping it off,
Well, I could tell one sort of, just to flip the coin here for a little. It's one thing. So maybe elaborate it in a way. It's one thing to study someone else's work and try to understand the workflow and technicalities behind how the work is being made, and then trying to take a lesson, apply it to what you want to do later with your own work. That's the one thing, and it's almost like looking at someone else's work as a reference. It's very much like you would go and do plein air. You would do it to learn the lighting. You would do it to learn how to apply colors without color picking. Like all of those things, technical things in plein air that would make your skill set much more, basically expand your skill set and expand it in a way that you can use it in the different domains. It doesn't mean that if you're painting from plein air, from now on you're just a landscape artist and you cannot do anything else. And I think that's what happens when you look at concept art or when you look at illustration. If you only constrain yourself to look at illustration or concept art or someone else's work and never try to apply this to your own sort of ideas and never try to expand the amount of references you're looking at, because let's be real, like you're always going to look at references no matter what that is, right? Whether it's a visual reference or something that you read, some kind of cool article that gives you an idea. There's always going a combination of things that you've experienced in your life that's going to build something very unique to yourself. But if
Right.
you limit that influence to only one source, what you're going to end up doing is basically what you said, is basically copying someone else's work, whether you are aware of that or not. That is basically what it is. And I think if you go, for instance, on ArtStation and look at work, it's,
Yeah.
Vitaly posts some of his amazing, kid bashing models that he's created. I think for the project that he did, the Black Phoenix, he went for a 6-month sabbatical, and basically he just built the whole library of assets from scratch, and then did himself a challenge that towards the end of that 6-month sabbatical, he basically spent, I think, about 10 days, and his goal was to create an image a day, like an awesome render. So any renders you see from that project, all of that was built in a day.
Oh, jeez.
Obviously kid bashed and then modeled, but rendering everything in one day, including textures and whatnot.
I hope a producer doesn't see that.
I'll tell you something funny. I worked with Vitaly on Ghost in the Shell, and I'm going to tell you, it's not a pleasant experience to hear from producers.
Yeah.
When you have a guy like that.
Well, that's the problem. Then they think everybody should do that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a separate topic. What I'm trying to get at is, like, Vitaly posts his work, and then you see copies of it, But
right.
One of the things that happens is, I think there are artists that move on and they post something, move on and create something new. There are also artists that the moment they share something, they're not progressing further. It's always a balance. But yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it perfectly. It's like if you're limiting your resources, then it can be really dooming for you.
Well, because there's being inspired, right?
Yeah.
But then there's just copying, right? And then you're just using the reference to just copy it, right? And then you're literally just taking their lighting, even for some illustrators, right? You're taking their lighting style, right? You're taking everything from there, and now it looks like that other guy did it, but you did it, right?
Yeah.
That is the problem. I mean, everyone's inspired by work, and you have a little influence. I mean, if you look at my work and you can see the artistic fathers of mine in Philippe Drouillet, Richard Corbin, and Gaetano Livatore, and and some of those guys, and some of Mobius, you know what I mean? But mainly, and they're all there, but they're not there.
Yeah, it's your own spin, and you take the cues that that your brain registered as a reference, looking at those artists, but also everything else that you've experienced, and then you created something that is your own. It's a derivative of what you've seen so far.
But here's the thing: is that when you do that, right? The whole idea is that you do that when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So your mind is developing and you're processing all this stuff, but you don't realize that stuff actually affected you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way that it did. There is the big difference, right? So, and that's what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to, in order to be a real artist, right? You have to actually go out and find the art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's work. It's not easy. A friend of mine actually said it really something probably a little bit more interesting than he was aware of, because he's a pretty simple guy. But he said, he's a guitar player, and he said, Edward Van Halen, one of the riffs, he goes, it's a really easy song. And I would look at him and I go, yes. And he goes, but he wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And no one else writes like that, right? They're parts. And I go, that's right. That's what makes him, right? That's exactly the point. Is that yeah, it may look easy and it may look like something that is really interesting, but you have to respect the people by not stealing from their vocabulary too much and use it
Yeah,
as an inspiration, a jumping off point. You know what I mean? See, the thing
exactly.
is that, and also before we couldn't post our stuff when we were learning. Now everybody posts everything. They
Yeah,
post their entire education. And so you might read more into that they're actually these guys are just thieves, but they're actually just children. No matter how old they are, they're just starting out. You know.
exactly. So it's always I think the best way to describe it is it's the attitude of a person that is doing it. Because I'm gonna be honest. When I looking back from 2004 where I started to today, it's a journey. There was so many dark moments for me
Yeah.
where I just like literally did something that was a copy of someone else's, and I was proud, like, oh shit, I did it. But then like got called out for it. It's like, fuck, you're right. And the difference is, when you get called out for doing something, when copying someone else's work, is how you react to it. Like, are you defensive or are you just admitting, yeah, you're right, and you
Right.
move on? And that's the biggest difference between people that develop themselves and as you said, when it's actually very interesting way you phrased it, that everyone now is posting their education and their
Right.
journey online, because you couldn't do that before. And
No.
it's absolutely true. Like, looking at what artists do, you basically have an entire history of their learning. And
Right.
obviously it depends on how much they share, but even today I do that myself. Like, I'm trying to learn new software and get the better grip on ZBrush and all that stuff, and see
Right.
how I can apply it to my personal work. But I
Yeah.
post almost every day, even if it's a new render. It's like sharing that
Right.
journey, because I feel like it's an exciting thing to do, to share.
Right.
That along the way of creating something that people will recognize as an awesome artwork, there is a journey to it that takes you from failing, copying, trying something that doesn't work, and then eventually finding the right way to do it, right?
Well, I mean, and plus, I mean, the culture is much more social now. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's easy to be social now online with all the community of artists. You know what I mean? That you select to, or unless you're on Instagram, you know what I mean? And which that's where I am now. I left Facebook. It was far too political for me. And I needed a place that was strictly just art, and so
Yeah.
I went to Instagram, and if anyone is trying to friend me on Facebook, sorry, I am not really there. Go to Instagram, but yeah, so it works. I understand. I post sketches on. I have a sketchbook, a virtual sketchbook that I post on all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and anything, you know what I mean? Just scribbles. So yeah, because see, honestly, since I have to work on a computer all the time for the day job, drawing, if I get to do that professionally, is a gift and a half. So if I don't get to do that, I have to draw that day, and so I go, to my table and I sit there and I draw, and it's exciting. I love it. I still love it as much as I used to love it when I was a kid. You know what I mean? It's the
Yeah.
same excitement every time a line goes down. It's just I love it so much. But so yeah, I photograph it and I post it. So it's the same thing. You know what I mean?
How
So
much? How much on average? I mean, we all know that the industry is kind of moving forward, and it used to be drawings. Now it's now it's Photoshop, and even moving forward towards 3D even more. I'm
right.
curious how many, on average, how many jobs you still get where you can get to be, with the drawing board and your pencil.
Well, I mean, most of my jobs this year were drawing on paper so far.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this one that I'm working on now essentially could be drawing on paper, but it's kind of moving into production. And it was
Right.
always kind of production, leaning towards production, even from the day that we started. So I had to go straight into working in in Photoshop. You know what I mean? But I still draw. I draw everything if I sketch it out really quick. Even if I scratch it on with blobs of black in Photoshop, then I'll print it out on really cheap butcher paper in a faded glob, and then I'll draw over that, then scan it back in. You know,
that's cool. That's cool.
Yes.
That's a cool workflow.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps it alive because honestly, I can't. For some reason, I have far more focus with the pencil than I do drawing on the computer, no matter what.
Yeah, it's like this tool that you're the most familiar with, and it's giving you the most fun when you're creating, and I think that's really important. It's really cool that you're still doing it because, I mean, I've been in the film industry, not that long. I think I started in 2014, so it's only been 2 years. I've seen a couple of projects myself, and it's very rare to see someone drawing with pencil. Very rare.
Well, you'll have a full career ahead of you. You did great work.
I think Ed Nadavidad is is one of those guys, and there was maybe one more person I saw using pencils. Yeah. But Ed, you know, is like you. He would draw something, but then he would also use Photoshop to, you know, scan and do the work that way. So, you know, it's the iteration that you can do quickly, especially in the production environment where sometimes you just have to be really quick with the iterations, and if you know you cannot afford to start the drawing, the pencil drawing over because someone asks you to do small changes. Right. You know. Yeah.
No. I mean, you know, when I was drawing with Denis on Arrival, for example, right?
Right.
We were in an office, and I'm sitting there with my iPad. And I have a sketchbook with me. I was living up north at the time in Northern California, and they flew me down for a week. And I would sit there with my iPad, a sketchbook. I drew the drawing in the sketchbook in front of him. I'm just sitting there drawing. Then I would take a picture with my iPad and then finish it right there in front of him on my iPad. And it was still scratchy because, I mean, I'm doing it right in front of him on the fly.
Right.
You know, but the idea was that it was digitized immediately. I mean, no scanner necessary anymore. The process and the software, even though it's light software that's in the iPad, you know what I mean? It still works really well. I mean, and that was all drawn with my finger. I didn't have a stylus at that time, you know. So it still works. I mean, you can still move fast and use your skills. You know what I mean? In other words, you don't have to give them up. But I mean, there are some production designers that have a whip out, and they need to meet a quota every day, and that process could get in the way.
Yeah.
But my experience is that if you give them something good, they'll have good stuff from you. You know, even though they may have less than a bunch of crap. You know.
Yeah. I hate that, dude. Yeah. I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
I usually I've gotten away with basically doing what you said, just killing one but making it look really good, you know, making it thoughtful instead of just like producing 10 shitty ones.
I know. Yeah.
I hate it. It's
I still
so counterproductive.
I still deal with that. You know what I mean? You know, even if they call me by name and give me this job, you know, and they were looking for me and they hired me for the job, they still treat you the same. They don't treat you any better, you know?
Yeah.
So there's no, you know, level of escape from that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. There's obviously, you know, when you're lucky and you work with a director like Dennis, or when you work with production designers that are very artistic, you know, I think I had the best time I had working on film projects was working with Rupert Sanders on Ghost in the Shell. And the second one,
that was tailor-made for you, that project, though, man.
I can't wait. It's less than a month before I get to release everything.
That's like it's a perfect combination for you. Yeah.
The funny thing is that they named one of the locations with my name, which was
Oh,
kind of
did they?
like,
Oh,
yeah.
that's good.
So even
Yeah,
if,
that's
when you load up a trailer, I think a couple of seconds in when they're running into that hotel that Major drops from, and they
uh-huh.
go to the window. That's called the
Yeah.
mache.
Okay. I was gonna say which one, Mache or the Cusiata?
They called it mache. Like it's funny because
Mache.
you load up a trailer and there's the big fucking logo with my name.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
So
a
yeah,
big
that's the
shout
thing
out to
about having an
production
odd name.
'cause
Yeah.
it was productions. I can't remember whose idea was that, but it was someone in the production, one of the production assistants that suggested it, and then Rupert really liked it, I believe. Super awesome because it's just like it was one of the longest projects I worked on too. It was like I think
Yeah.
18 months or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one I really liked was working with Darren Guildford on Tron. That, by the way, is
Oh,
getting up its legs again.
is
I'm
it?
curious what's gonna happen there.
I've known Darren since God, we were in our 20s. I'm 52 now.
Holy
That
shit!
was Yeah. I've known Darren for many, many, many years. I know
Damn!
him and his dad. His dad and I
Wow.
got along better than Darren and I did. His Because his dad was a madman. I don't know if his dad's still around, so I haven't talked to him. I just moved back down a couple years ago, so I haven't talked to a lot of people.
Right.
But his dad and I got along. I mean, honestly, we were. It was a lot of fun hanging out with his dad. It's hilarious. Jewish, a New York Jewish type of guy. Very
Okay.
funny. I got along.
Comedian.
I felt like they were my family though. Those guys got along with them so well. Very cool dudes. Darren is awesome. I haven't talked to Darren since I've been back down. I've been meaning to get in touch with him actually.
Yeah,
Good old
Darren is golden. It's such an awesome person to work with because
Yeah,
he's one of those guys when you're creating something and you get stuck, he'll be the
yeah,
first one to help you. He will like take
yeah,
over and like let's do this, and kind of
yeah,
lead you towards the right direction. And the best thing about him is you get almost absolute creative freedom
yeah,
to produce. He will steer you in a way that whatever you're gonna end up with is going to
yeah,
fit the project, but you're gonna
yeah,
have a creative freedom to do it, and it's almost like you're in full control on
yeah.
how the process works. It's amazing. I had an amazing time, and Rupert is one of those guys who's very visual driven.
Right.
I would always get I always get a kick from working with people that have very unorthodox references
Uh-huh.
when they try to introduce you to a project. They show you something that you've never seen before, and that
Right.
rarely ever happens. In most cases, like it's always something that is trending that you get the references to work on. Like, oh, someone posted awesome work, here it is, like let's use that.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
fuck, like I don't want to.
Yeah.
But the references I would be getting from Rupert would be very very interesting. Something that I've never seen before. So it was really fun.
Well,
Uh,
it's terrible when they give you a reference of work from somebody that you completely disrespect. You know what I mean?
oh yeah,
Or so I should say someone that you have no respect for their work at all, and
yeah.
it's absolute garbage. And you're like, what?
What, you like
That's what
this?
you want? You really want me to make that? All right, now I know where this project is. The wind
Yeah,
is out of your sail, and you're just done already. You can't even walk anymore.
it's the worst. It's the
Yeah,
worst. Cause like
right.
I get it. Like all right, I get it if they show you something and then you figure out, all right, do you like this very specific part of that, right? But if
Right.
it's someone who has a horrible taste and
Yeah.
they don't even explain what they like, it's like just make this. It's
Yeah.
like what the fuck?
Then why did you hire me for this
Yeah,
thing? If that's
why
what
don't you
you
hire
want, why
that
don't you
guy?
just
Yeah,
go and hire that guy and have him make it then? Yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
Like
well,
why?
Why? Because he can't. Okay. All right. Well then, so you're gonna have me try to fix that garbage right there. Thank you.
I've seen this
Thank you.
happen so many times, and you know what? My friend Danny Luvisi, I think his designs for Last Man Standing is probably the most ripped off designs that are out there
Yeah.
in recent years. Whether it's video
Yeah.
games and films,
Uh-huh.
I've seen his concepts in so many occasions Not necessarily on the projects that I was working on, but
uh,
it's damn like that poor guy. He's just like he created something unique, and everyone is just fucking ripping him off.
that's what they do, man. Hey, man, you know what I mean? That's what it. You know, hey,
Sucks, man.
you
It
know,
sucks
yeah.
so hard.
He finally got hair on his balls. That's the way I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, when you have to deal with someone ripping you off like that. Okay, hi. Now you've become a man. You know.
And he was, I think he was saying that many times publicly. Like he would walk into a studio and saw his concepts
Yeah.
being redrawn like one to one by someone else. Like,
Oh.
the fuck? Like, why don't you hire me? Like, you already know me. Hire fucking me. I'll do it gladly, and I'll do something really original instead
See,
of
that's
hiring
actually that's even worse. And I've been on gigs where I've seen them literally
Yeah.
want to take other people and let's make that. And I go, well, that guy is not going to be happy about you just ripping him off.
Yeah.
You know, that's not cool. Why don't I want to give this guy the job opportunity? And
I don't
you
get
know,
it,
and then
dude. I just
I
literally don't get it.
don't either.
It's so
I don't.
it's so fucking bizarre. Like, hey, I like your work. We would like to work with you. Boom, and there. Like in most cases, most of the people that I know that their work being ripped off, they would gladly take that job.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because it's what they do. So why not hire them to do what they do?
Exactly. It's so fucking
Yes.
weird.
Yeah,
get it.
it's because it's the producers, man. You know, it's producers. Production designers are just the servicers of the production. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So many of them just end up they're politicians. Many of them, and for me as a character guy, I never had to deal with production designers before until all this transition of practical into CG that we're dealing with now.
Right.
You know,
Who would
is
you
kind
work
of
with normally?
well, I worked for TV animation houses, and then I walked in, and then I never worked in an art department ever before.
Mm.
I worked for the makeup shops, you know, strictly, and that was for all my years, like 13 years before I went to work at ILM. Then I went to work for ILM, and then things started. I dealt with the transition head on because it started up there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's all started there. It's kind of tricky too.
Yeah.
Like the Photoshop guys were were from ILM, right?
Yeah, John Knoll and his brother. Yeah, well, his brother actually did it, but John, I think, was the one who came up with the idea with his brother. And John is he's the in effect lead. He's like the head of the supervisors, I think, up there now. But yeah, so it all started up there, and I had to deal with the politics of that immediately. And I had to deal with some guy that didn't know how to draw, and a guy that was a technician trying to tell me how to design something. And I didn't come out of school. I had already worked for all the greats down here. You know, all my heroes, Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, everybody I worked for down here, right?
Yeah.
So then you have these monkeys trying to tell me what to do, and I'm looking at them like, no, I'm not going to do that. You guys can sit down, and I'll tell you when you can actually start talking. Okay, I'm going to design something, and then you can tell me if it actually has an issue technically, if there are issues with it.
Yeah.
And then we can work together. But I'm not going to do what you're asking because that sounds like a children's book character, and I'm not going to do that. You know.
Yeah.
But so now dealing with production designers back down here, it's kind of the same thing. I have to deal with that again with production designers, and they were never involved with the characters. But now that the makeup guys are gone, there's no character lead anymore. We need character leads put back into the system.
Yeah, it's kind of weird with film. I mean, in games you have art director, period. That would be a person that would take care of everything. In film,
That's like animation. Yeah.
Yeah, and in film it's so fragmented, which in a way can be good, especially if production gets really big. Then it's a little bit too much to ask to have one person to take care of everything. And usually it ends up just being a director who does that. But yeah, production designer would be someone who would just deal with sets and sets only, and then some props and stuff like that. And you would have costume department that basically just makes costumes.
Yeah.
And then characters that like there's, and it usually becomes. I haven't experienced it myself, but I could see this going political if production designer and costume department would try to tackle and find out who has the stronghold over it. You know?
They do actually at times, and the problem is that neither of them know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? And I'm not, and it's not an exaggeration. It's an absolute truth. Neither of them has any clue to the process of how it and what is actually good. Their taste levels are popcorn. Yeah. They have no idea what good is, and this is an absolute truth. It's not just my opinion. This is a fact. And that they have absolutely no taste when it comes to characters. They think they know it's cool because they're very fashion driven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, the costume designer, but so is a production designer. They're very driven by the tastes of the time because they're helping to push people to style the show, right? But they don't know what's good as far as like characters and specifics go. So. It really does have to. They need to put a person in there, and that was Rick Baker, Rob Bottin, or Stan Winston back in the day.
Yeah,
But I mean, the levels of good were because Rick was involved, or because Rob was involved. And now, where are the characters that are interesting? There aren't any. The only shop that has a creature shop, it develops really good characters. Are the people up in Weta but they did Apes, the Planet of the Apes, and Koba especially, out of the two characters in the Planet of the Apes, he is phenomenal. But it exists already in nature. It's an ape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there needs to be, this hole is a big gaping hole that is it leads straight to hell. Okay.
Yeah, Weta has an amazing team. I was lucky enough to. When I was last year, I visited Ghost in the Shell set. We were invited together with Ash to go there and take a look at what they're building there. And we also met with Richard Taylor and the Weta team. Those guys are amazing. When it comes to really producing the highest quality art. It was really cool to talk with those guys. But I agree, like there's this void out there. I think the luckiest you can get is just basically to work with director, because then all the bullshit that comes from production design, if that happens, or from any other sources, you don't really have to deal with that at all, because you have only one person to talk with. No,
that's the best solution. Is literally for the designer to work directly with the director. That's the best solution.
That was basically majority of Ghost in the Shell for me. I was just right from the get-go. It was me and Vitali at the very beginning. We're working on that project together. Then there was some folks from our department that were on the show until it went to Weta, and then the moment it went to Weta, it was just me, Vitali, and I think Ash. Ash joined before it went to. I can't remember exactly when, but it was only towards the end when I was working with the supervising art director, Richard Johnson, and production designer and costume designer. Actually, costume designer for me, it joined before they went to Weta. Actually, there was those two brothers. I think they're brothers. I hope they're brothers. I hope I'm not fucking killing myself right now with this false information. Kurt and Bart. There's a really, really good, like, they're really interesting costume designers, and
cool.
David, like the artistry that they put into creating costumes for Ghost in the Shell was wow, dude. I gotta say, really, really prolific, really interesting minds. The greatest part is like when you have that one-to-one connection, and that the only person you're really replying to is director, then you have the freedom to have more conversation. And that's what it was for me. I would be on the call with costume designers and would discuss. Obviously they would have their idea what they want to do, but it would have like a long discussions on how to actually make it, instead of just like do this and copy that. Like fuck, like I don't really want to do that.
Right.
But But that was like a really interesting experience for me. So it's very like you have to be really lucky.
I mean, it's fun to work with. I mean, costume design can be fun. Working with good costume designers and that are creative and allow you to. I mean, if they have a vision, it's even better because then you have restraints and you know where you're going to be creative. You know what I mean? When it's just an open, it's just open. You don't know what the hell to do and you need someone to direct you. But I prefer actually bookends, and I like people that are creative leads like that. And I do. And now let me step back to like production designers, like for example Arthur Max on Prometheus. He was awesome at keeping my table very light, where he would focus the direction that I was going in just by telling me you're going to work on these guys right now, okay? And then he would show it to Ridley, and then we'd come back, and I love that. That I love. Okay, someone that's just keeping me, focused on what I know, but not telling me what to do, right?
Yeah.
But that is carving out that space for me to be creative, And that I love, and that's why I think guys like Arthur Max were awesome, in doing that. I love that, because then they keep my space stressless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I worked in wardrobe before with Bob Ringwood, on the Batman movies back in the day. But Bob is, he's the guy that did the suits for Excalibur. You know what I mean? And the still suits in Dune. You know what I mean? This is the big time costume designer, and I was able to work with that guy, and it was fun. I mean, I'm not a costume person, I'm not a wardrobe guy, but man, it was fun working with people like that. So I would imagine that, especially in looking at the way you draw, and how you draw and the stuff that you draw, you were probably having a great time working on this movie. Man, I hope it's good. Because I love the anime, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting for sure. But anyways, yeah, it's when you're lucky, it's perfect. Like whether it's a really good production designer or director. I'm actually curious how many times so far you worked with director only. Was there apart from, I guess Arrival was one of those projects, right?
Yeah, Prometheus, both times,
Right.
Most of the projects I'm working with, either I have now an effects lead handling me, which I don't mind. I actually like that now. Or I work directly with the director, and that's the way it's been. Since I left ILM, I quit ILM to work for a place for Digital Domain. They had a creature division that we were starting up north, but then everyone knows what happened to Digital Domain and how they publicly.
Yeah, don't get me started there.
Okay, so
it was pretty nasty what happened, and I was unfortunately in the middle of it too. So.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Well, our whole division was on that, and we got wiped out.
Fuck.
We were up in Northern California. And they took us out completely.
Were you one of those lucky guys that got letters from lawyers?
No, I was
lucky you.
We were kicked out before that.
Okay.
But the guy that was our boss, got one of those nice letters.
It's $10,000-$15,000 later, telling them to fuck off. Yeah. Fun times, I would say.
Well, and then some people actually had to pay.
Wow.
Yeah, people were being pursued to pay money.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of those, but I didn't pay. I just told them to fuck off, and
yeah.
Can
you? I don't even have any words for that. I don't.
Well, it's. I don't want to get into details, obviously.
No.
But it's the way the law works in this country. Nothing that they were doing was outside of the letter of the law, which is the most fucked up thing to begin with. But yeah, that was for me. It was a moment where that triggered me to basically, fuck this. I'm starting an LLC. that was the moment, like a wake up call. Like I'm probably gonna be better off, having some kind of liability protection.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
right. No, I understand. Yeah, that was one of the worst ones. I've never seen that before. And since,
yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. So, okay. So after that went away, I have been freelance since. Again, I was freelance 13 years before going up north, and now I am back at it in the last 5, 6 years, I should say. Um, and I am working only from home,
Mm-hmm.
and the only person in front between me and the client would be an effects lead, you know, and a lot of them have become friendly with me, so
Right.
I like them because they keep me out of the stress,
Yeah.
uh, but I like working with the director actually, especially if they're like Denis or Ridley, who are creative types.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, those guys are they're the best. You know what I mean? Denis is, like I said. I mean, he. I did work on the Blade Runner movie, but it was. I told him, I go, I don't draw buildings, man, and he's like, I know, but I really want to work with you again. I go, I know, but I don't do that, and so a year later, he calls me, and I get a call, Carlos. Denis wants to talk to you. Wants you to come on to the Blade Runner. I'm like, I don't draw buildings. I don't know what it is. Dude, there's so many people out there that draw them better than I do. I mean, that I can't do anything close to what these people can do, but he found something for me to do, and I was busy for a bit on it. I do love the guy. I love working with him. He's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah,
He seems to. I mean, watching his movies, they're really well made. They're
yeah,
smart. They're not stupid popcorn
no,
movies. They're really well made stuff. So I really
that's.
enjoy it.
I was actually
Sicario was awesome. Arrival
Sicario
was
is
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sicario is still one of my favorites. Um, but yeah, I thought I was disappointed that he didn't get. They didn't get the best adapted screenplay for that script.
Hmm.
That's the only one that I was hopeful for because I know the politics of Hollywood, you know. But
It's never gonna work.
although they did give a first time young director for best director for that the song movie.
La La Land.
For La La Land, which I don't even know what to say.
What kind of clusterfuck was that?
I
I'm
don't.
not saying the movie, but the
Oh,
Oscars.
I don't. Yeah, I know.
I've
It's
heard the
like,
guy who fucked it up
yeah,
for the Oscars.
yeah.
He had a history of being. That's what I heard allegedly. He had a history of being distracted by looking at Twitter all the time.
There it is. So, isn't that just like the way things go these days? The guy has been arrested several times. We had no idea. You're like, really? He was on everybody's radar. Yeah, I know, but we just can't go after him because he's a threat. Okay, so don't be surprised if he commits a crime, you monkeys.
Yeah, it's we live in a world that is really bizarre. Like it's because you and me and I guess I'm old enough to say that I was born and lived the era without internet for
Right,
during my childhood. So I've
right.
seen, and especially I guess with Poland, it was a little easier for me to sort of like be in that bracket because Poland was so late with getting the technology because of the
Uh,
communism and whatnot. Which, by the way, the communism and socialism, like that's something that I'm really scared of because I
no,
lived it. I lived it, dude.
I
But
know.
anyways,
I
um,
understand, man. Trust
but
me, there's a lot of us that are looking. The
but
majority of people aren't looking at that, but I am.
yeah. So some of the things that I hear that are extremely leftist,
Yeah,
are scary for me. But yeah, I don't want to
yeah.
get political.
No,
But
no, no, no. I
anyways,
understand.
so I've seen it from the rotary phones and dial-up internet, and then like when 1 megabit came into town, there was like someone who had that was a baller, and then like seeing that progress, and so like I remember when I was in it wasn't elementary, it was secondary school when someone came in with like this brick of a cell phone, the one that is basically the size of a laptop,
right.
and was like the coolest guy.
Yeah.
Because he could call his parents from school.
But you had to walk arout with that thing. You know?
Yeah. But he was like, he always had like the new gadgets, so he was like the most likable guy. But I've seen it all, and now it's like the progress of technology and social media, and especially over the last 5 years, it's so insane. And I personally have noticed it on myself. Like the social media became such a distraction that is really difficult to follow. And there is a science behind it. It's basically the dopamine release, and that's the way the social media is crafted for you to have as much of that dopamine release as possible. And you find yourself sort of like, let me quickly check Facebook, or let me quickly check Instagram or stuff like that, and it becomes such a big distraction at the end of the day. It's just insane.
No, it's interesting to see the addiction, and the bravery that comes out because of it. You know what I mean? Because you don't have to face anybody. But I think that we're finally seeing the results of that kind of. I don't know if you could call it an education. I would say almost. I would almost call it like engineering. The social engineering that's going on because of it, and it might be. A byproduct and not necessarily like a sinister, focus. Or it could be. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? But we're seeing the results of it by people losing respect for each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that there's people who don't have respect for each other. They don't know how to disagree respectfully with each other.
It's very polarizing for sure. But they don't know how to respect each other, and that's the big thing that's been lost. I think is respect for people that you disagree with. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's okay. It's okay that you guys don't agree. It's okay. You just disagree, and that's it. Yeah. It doesn't mean you can't live together. Exactly. It's one of those disconnecting factors. Because you can go in and post something anonymously on Twitter, create a fake account and just start blasting people with shit, and feel brave about it. It's like, or when you drive a car in LA, like it's so easy to start honking and yelling at people. Something you would fucking never do when you would walk into a person. The first thing you would say, "I'm sorry," because you would genuinely feel. Sorry about walking into someone. No, but someone fucking is in your way in a car. You're going to start honking and yelling, "You fucking asshole." It's just the disconnection, not being face to face. I think it's the biggest problem. The distractions of having having the technology around you is awesome because you can do so much stuff. It's you can get connected to everyone, but it's also a curse. You are connected to everyone, which means you're getting bombarded and overwhelmed with the information and everything that is around you. There's only an amount of information you can process before you get really fucking stressed out. No,
it's really it's that's funny, but it's absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, it cracks me up when I see people yelling at each other. I had friends that were the worst culprits of that. They would literally yell into my ear through me at someone on the road, and I would be almost crying laughing at how crazy.
What did I do to fucking deserve having my ears damaged?
At how crazy they would get and how fast they would go all the way up to 100.
It's insane. It's the ego too. It's like fucking lack of perspective. I think one of the things that the older you get, the more perspective on life you get, and if you open your mind a little, and I think the best thing that happened that I started doing personally that basically opened up my ego and sort of like crushed my ego really, because I used to be very bad at it. I used to be like a person that thought I'm the fucking shit, But I started doing jiu-jitsu, and when you start doing jiu-jitsu, the first thing you learn is that you are a worthless piece of shit for the longest time, because if your ego's gonna be in the way, you're gonna get seriously hurt, seriously hurt. You can even die if you're an idiot. You can get choked out and die. The first thing you learn is that someone who is smaller, weaker, and perhaps like not skilled, that you think, oh, that's fucking asshole, that guy's I gonna overwhelm. Nope. You're gonna get tapped out in a minute, and you're done. And if you don't tap out, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get your arm broken or something like that, or your shoulder dislocated, or your knee's gonna pop. There's so many ways to basically fuck you up in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you learn humility right away, and you learn it like when you're in the training and you roll with people. Every time you roll, probably until you get into sort of like maybe blue belt or higher white belt level, you're gonna be tapped out probably hundreds of 200s of 500s of thousands of times before you even get that one submission that you're gonna be so proud of. Like, holy shit, I finally reached the level that I can compete with someone else, and it's built such an amazing amount of humility, and it is perspective changing, because then you start to realize, wait a minute, like, everyone is different. Everyone has different opinion, and the beauty of us being, living in this patch of dirt called America is that we have a freedom of expression. We can say and express our own ideas. That's why I'm saying, like, communism fucking scary, because I've seen and I've heard stories from my grandma what happened to people that disagreed with others. They would be basically fucked up, whether killed or in jail for forever. So it was really fucked up. So we have this, experiment called free speech, which allows us to, express ourselves. And the worst thing that can happen to people is just like be really upset and really be driven by ego, because then it just turns into that militant approach to, and just getting upset about really worthless shit that really doesn't really affect your own life. Who cares if someone yells at you? Like, it's your
it becomes a hysteria, I think. And everyone feeds each other like, hey, you shouldn't let them talk to you like that, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? It's like, you're right. And these and people get really bent out of shape, and they get crazy, and you're like looking at them like, it's not that big of a deal, man. And they're looking at you with the crazy eyes, and you're like, it's okay. Calm down, man. Don't go and do that. Don't do that. And their eyes are all crazy. You could see that they can't see anymore. Their eyes have gone
crocodile
black.
Brain that we still have. That's the issue. Technology moved so fast, but we biologically we're not developing as fast as the technology does, and it's
it'll
causing
never happen.
issues. Yeah.
It'll never happen because we're all monkeys. You know what I mean? Everyone's. I mean, you can see them out there. Hitting the floor, getting all angry. It's like, look, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't. I mean, if how many. I love that someone posted. Here's how to respond to a post that gets you enraged, right? And so it's like, write it, think about it, research it, and then delete it.
Exactly.
That's what everyone needs to do with everything.
One of the quotes that I've read recently from Tim Ferriss, there are no statues erected for critics.
That's right.
It's
true. I read that
so
too.
True.
Yeah.
So true.
That's true.
Why would you care about someone being nasty? It's his own problem, not yours. Is it going to affect your life significantly? One thing is when you get harmed. Well, then you obviously have to act. But if it's not affecting your life in a physical way, why would you fucking care? Like, just focus. It's again like we're getting bombarded by so many things, whether it's like reading news or Facebook, anything like that. I personally have basically I haven't watched or looked at any news site, haven't watched any news whatsoever for like a year now. I don't give a fuck.
You're better off.
I literally don't give a fuck. If it's something really important that it's going to affect my life, I'm going to hear it from others.
Well, that you can do anything about, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just going out and getting angry, you can't really do anything with that. So get on, be productive, and do something.
Yeah, if you want to do something, then do something about it.
Do it. But if you can't, it's physically impossible for you to do anything other than just making noise. I mean, then you're like the monkey that's out there with the bone slamming on the floor. You know what I mean? Because it's like
the 2001.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You're right in front of the obelisk, and you're out there. You know what I mean? Slamming it on the floor. I mean,
Yeah, I rather focus on artistic endeavors and learning
that's
and
exactly
family.
my point. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. And that's why I mean that's the most interesting thing, because in the end, you're gonna live and die, right?
yeah,
So then what? You didn't do
that's
anything.
true. Like,
Okay,
you know what?
you're
We
just hitting the
all,
bone on the floor.
yeah, we are all gonna die. Like that's
That's right.
that's granted. So just look back at your life. Was it really worth your time to spend arguing with someone who you don't really care about?
That's right. Did you
You know
mark?
what I mean?
Did you make a mark on the earth at all? Did you do
Did you
anything?
did you did you enrich your life? Did
Yeah,
you
or
did you spend
others.
that time with family that you would have a good time, doing something that is really nice? No, you basically wasted on getting angry.
No, I mean I don't. I mean
Yeah,
honestly, I come from a completely different. I come from a Christian perspective. You know what I mean?
right.
And that happened as an adult before I became a professional. Just before I became a professional,
Mm.
right? And so I have a completely different level of what is actually important. You know what I mean? Than what is actually going on, and you see the madness. I go, it's not interesting. I'm going to go
Yeah,
and make artwork, and I'm going to start talking this way. And that's why there's a big driver right there for the kind of work that I like. And you would imagine that why would I be drawing monsters with that kind of influence? You know what I mean? But it's just what you are. You know what I mean? And you
yeah,
try to make it talk and speak for you. So
yeah,
you know,
exactly. I think we have a few questions, not that many.
okay.
If there's not that many questions, that means most of them were already answered.
Okay.
Someone asked, what is the hardest director to work with so far for you?
I can't name his name,
Of course, we don't
but
want to do that. You
no.
don't have to answer that either.
But I'll
One of
tell
the
you, there were two. Okay, and I'll just say it this way. I'll tell you their stories. One director would get so drunk or high the night before that while he was on location, he would be on the floor with his head underneath a tarp or something like that. You know what I mean?
mm,
Okay, and he couldn't even go to do the shoot. He'd have to just tell them, wave them to go and do the shoot. The other one is a young guy, a millennial, that didn't honestly have. He had the attention span of a gnat. Uh, he would talk to us, and then as soon as we started responding to him, and this is no exaggeration, he would look down at his phone and start tapping it. I'm not exaggerating. He would
God damn it,
not. He had no attention span. He couldn't listen to us discuss his movie to him and ask him questions.
that sucks.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do, and you will see the movie. That's all
There's
it is.
a video you can find if you search it. You can gonna find it on YouTube. It's Simon Sinek,
Uh huh.
Sinek,
Uh-huh.
and basically it's called Millennials, and he
Oh,
basically he nails that what you're saying. He's basically
I,
describing exactly what you're saying. You know.
I can't express. I wish I could tell you the stories from that movie and what movie it was for. The discussions that we had of characters that were unbelievable. The references were video game characters for explosive, realistic characters, and that was his reference. I never, I didn't even know what to do with it. I just looked at
Right.
him like, so there it is. You know.
Do you ever look at bodies that were deformed genetically for inspiration?
No, no.
Okay, simple
I actually
answer.
feel bad for those people. I don't like to look at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah. I used to look at, especially like when working on the projects where I would have to, draw something gore.
yeah,
I would look at something like that. I get very, very numb to it personally,
yeah, yeah,
because it's just like, yeah, I guess that happens.
yeah.
But like recently, I just stopped. It's when you realize, I guess I think the biggest change is when you start to have a family, and you really
Right,
care for someone, and then
right.
seeing someone else being hurt, it
Yeah.
resonates with you differently.
It's getting older too, though, because I
Yeah.
don't have any. I don't have any kids. It's just my wife and I, And
Mm.
so I never really liked it though, but I like it even less now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never had an interest in horror movies per
I
se.
hate horror
Uh,
movies, dude.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hate being
I
scared. What the fuck?
yeah. I just never liked watch. I never understood what was cool about watching people get killed. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I go, well, there's no monster in this, but I don't know why I'm watching it. You know?
Well,
I
one movie I enjoyed was the Cabin in the Woods because of the
yeah,
twist. The twist
yeah,
was
right,
fun.
right, right.
Um, but
Yeah, that.
I
Yeah,
agree with you there. I'm
yeah.
on the same page.
I mean, the only one would be like, what was it? The Evil Dead series, which was less about the horror and more about the whole thing, which was the comedy. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And Army of Darkness destroyed me. The first half of that movie was the most quotable movie of all time. You know what I mean? That movie is hilarious. I was crying, laughing, watching that movie by myself. The first half,
Yeah.
so good, good stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Do
yeah.
you do you still make art that you feel is not good enough or bad, like straight out
All
bad? And then what do you do in that case?
all the time. I all the time. Whenever I work on a job, the job that I'm on now, for example, it's completely out of my it's out of my comfort zone. This the movie that I'm working on now, and I've been chasing it for God, and you don't always get this opportunity. But I've been it's a big movie. I've been on it for maybe I don't know a couple months now,
Mm-hmm.
and just now, this last week, I finally found the language for the project. It took me this long, and I had to fight through it. And they may still the other stuff might they like it and they may use it right to make the
Yeah.
stuff, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the style. I didn't feel like I had it until this last week
Mm.
because it's so out of my comfort zone. The translation is a translation of a 2D cartoony project into a live action film, and it just wasn't working. There was nothing. Either you're going too naturalistic or you're going too cartoony.
Right.
Then you tried somewhere in the middle, and it's just not melding together. And so you have to even find that hybrid and find between the hybrid and the cartoony. And then you go, well, no, that's not working. And you have to find the right mark on that arc for it to work. And I go through that almost every project, but some worse than this is probably the worst one for me that way. And I've been, you're moody the entire time. You're angry
Yeah.
because you can't find it. You're trying to find it. But that's how long. Yes. So yes, I go through that all the time, and you work through it and you get there. That's the difference. And we were, you and I think, Machi, we were talking about this. Is how you work when you're. God, I know I'm talking about a bunch of things, but we were talking about how the I'm trying to remember how we worded it. Well, forget it. Look, yeah, because I don't remember exactly. But the idea is that you do work through the bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to work through to get to that point. You don't always get the opportunity, but that's the difference between a novice and a professional, is that the professional can actually work through it and get there.
Yeah.
The novice, even though he has a great portfolio, right? He may have a great portfolio, but under pressure, he'll fall apart.
Crumbles. Yeah.
Yeah, and he can't
it's a
get there.
difficult thing still.
Yeah.
Like even for myself, and I'm pretty sure for yourself too. It's like you feel like fuck, it's not getting there, and you get frustrated because it's just like far from what you imagine you would want to see personally.
Yeah. You never get past that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm telling you, I started in 1985 as a professional. Okay, and I'm telling you now, it never goes away.
Yeah.
You'll never you'll fight through it. But the whole point, though, the thing to do, and for everybody, so what to do about that? You practice drawing a lot at night for yourself, outside of work, and you'll find things, and you'll find your language, and you'll find a way to talk around something to get to that. You know what I mean? and you keep on drawing things that you like and that you want to see, right? And you're developing the language, you're developing shape groups, you're developing things that will work for you. So if you're a landscape person, get out there and draw and study, man. You know, I mean, even I did that. You were talking about this earlier, about going out and doing plein air. I've done plein air painting with some of the best, you know,
Yeah.
believe it. It's what you do. You go out there and you mix everything up. You find, you know, and you get so comfortable with it that you can work your way around the difficult spots. So that should help anybody. I mean, you just have to keep on working. It's like working out. Some people go to the gym. I do not. Okay, I'd rather be drawing at home.
Yeah.
I figure we're all gonna die. You're just gonna look better in your grave than me, maybe. But we're gonna die at the same time. Get over it.
Well, one thing, just in defense of working out, I don't do enough of it. I honestly, the only reason why I would go and work out, and I wish I could do more jiu-jitsu. I just don't have enough time for it. But when I go to roll and when I go for jiu-jitsu, when I go for a workout or a run or whatever that is, you know, I try to at least once a week do something that requires me to do a physical movement. I used to be so much better at it. I just found myself. I run myself into a corner of working too much, and this year I'm basically scaling back so I can get back to that rhythm of enjoying life instead. You know?
Yes. Right.
But one of the things that happen is, you know, when you take care of your body and work, whether you work out or you run or even go for walks, what happens is that, you know, I don't remember exactly I always forget what it was called. But your brain releases, I fucking can't remember what it was called.
What, like endorphins?
Endorphins, or I can't remember what it was. I think it was endorphins. Yeah. Again, super non-scientific. There is a science behind it. It's like your brain releases, let's say, endorphins, and basically makes you reset, and be more productive in a way. Like you might be physically tired, and you might feel like you lost time, but what happens is that you're much more fresh in terms of your mind, you know, and you know that if you don't have a fresh mind, you're never going to be as productive as you always wanted to be, right?
No, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, and there are people that need that. I mean, for me personally, a cup of coffee and I'm good to go. You know, I have a very high-strung mind.
I'm coffee addicted.
No, but my mind is also very high-strung. I'm a higher energy mind worker, but not physically. I'm not higher energy, but I'm high energy in my head. Yeah. I'm very hyperactive when it comes to doing what I do. And that works in my favor. It's a gift that my mom imparted. You know what I mean? Awesome. She's, you know, my dad is all control. You know, he has control of himself. My mom is hyperactive and eccentric in her mind. And physically, too, actually. My mom is physically hyperactive. You know, they're both very physical people. I don't know what the hell happened to me. You know, but I love to sit and draw. And, you know, it's where I find pleasure. I don't find much pleasure in anything else other than that, you know, other than, you know, anything creative. You know, if I had the space for a drum set in a room that was like soundproofed, I would probably be in there half of my day. But I don't have that. So, and then I'd get my physical activity there, but you know.
Awesome. Yeah. The only thing that I could say about jiu-jitsu, which I think works best, I find the most appealing to me, is that when you're rolling and you're sparring with other people, you get in that state of flow. It's you literally don't think about anything else but that one thing you're doing. And I found that when you get your mind in that state, you can actually train yourself to be in that state. You know, you can train yourself to be focused only on one thing. That's when you become, you know, much more productive than anything else. I'm pretty sure you have that often. Especially you, I would guess. Know, where when you start working, you shut down everything around you, and then hours later, you sort of like almost like wake up from this dream. Like, what the fuck? Like 6 hours later, I thought I spent like 30 minutes on this, you know.
And then all the time has gone by in the day. Yeah. You know, but it's you know, that experience is exactly what musicians that play in a band go through.
Yeah.
There's a great documentary with Sigur Rós, right?
Oh, I love that
Uh,
guy.
the band, right?
Yeah,
Sigur Rós,
yeah.
right?
I
Okay,
love their music. It's fucking awesome.
but if you see the documentary with them, it's beautiful, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And just have it playing while you're working, because you can just stare at it off and on because it's very, very beautiful, man, damn. But the way that they are in a band and the way they communicate, it's nonverbal communication.
Hmm.
And when you're in a band, I understand because I've been in bands my entire younger years, right? And what you are working for is you're looking for at each other, and you're looking to see to feel where the guy is going to go, right?
Right.
And you can feel that without saying a word, right? It's nonverbal communication. It's the flow, like you're saying.
Yeah.
That flow, it's that flow. The band members, actually, people that play music and play in a group, understand that. That is a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to actually to work in our business, right? You have to be able to read people like that too. You know, you have to be able to read your clients. They're nonverbal communication. You have to be able to feel what they're actually trying to say, because sometimes it's not. It's not. You can't verbalize it. You know.
You have to almost. I call it click. You know, like the moment you click, you know that you're on the right side of the history.
Yeah. But it is. It's part of that idea of the flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're working with somebody, and you learn how to turn yourself off and just you're functioning, you know, but without your mind getting in the way. That's a big deal, and that's a very artistic thing.
Yeah, I've read this book. I don't think you need to read it, but it's definitely an awesome read. It's called The Deep Work, and it basically talks about the science behind exactly what you're talking about. So. It was one of the most prolific reads that I had recently. Really awesome book.
Yeah. What's the book? Name it.
Deep Work. It's called Deep Work. Let me actually find out who was the author of this. Let's see. It was Cal. I believe it was Cal Newport. There you go. Yeah, that book is awesome.
Yeah, that way at least the people will know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, I'll post the link to that book in the description of the video after the show.
Yeah.
Cool. There was a few more questions. I'm just gonna read through maybe two more, and then we can wrap it up. One was, what advice would you have for aspiring creature artists who want to improve their shapes? Where you mostly get your references and inspiration from? I think the latter part of the question we kind of already answered in the beginning.
Well, kind of. I mean, because look, I'll tell you what. You know what really turned my world upside down is when I started looking at photography of Carl Blossfeld, who is he does I think they're macro or micro. They're they're super close up photographs of plants in black and white, right? And they're old books. They're all black and white books, right?
Right.
And they are for me, what I draw my inspiration from is not other people's artwork. I actually look at living things, you know, and find things that are out there, because there's no better designer than God, you know. And the stuff that you think is cool, it's already been done. And you can find shapes out there that are exactly the way that you would want to draw them. If you stare at things that are under the sea, you stare at animals that are out there, and you watch them and fall in love with the way the anatomy functions rather than the anatomy itself. Look at the way the mechanism works and study that, and look at why an arm bends and what is actually causing it to bend, instead of studying the anatomy that makes it. You can look at the shape, everyone knows what it looks like, but if you know the mechanism, then you can invent anatomy, you know. If you're just studying the anatomy itself, then you're stuck to that. But if you study the mechanism, then you can invent, right? And shapes, that's what I do. I look at weird stuff, you know what I mean? Anything living, not other people's artwork. I look at
we kind of discussed that the artwork part in the beginning. For me, it's I look at the weird shit too. Like one of the things that I looked at recently the most was fashion.
Yeah,
and
it's
finding
great stuff. Yeah.
different patterns, because the fashion designers have very weird, very different way of looking at the reality than we do, especially the ones that come up with like bizarre ideas. I think
Love it. Yeah.
my favorite fashion designer, and who tragically killed himself basically, was McQueen. Alexander McQueen.
Uh,
There's a book from one of his collections. It's called Savage Beauty, and that book is fucking amazing.
oh, I
I
think
would
it's
recommend anyone who is interested, at least even like not even interested in fashion, but interested in really bizarre approach to shapes and forms and patterns and whatnot.
awesome.
That's an awesome
Yeah,
one to purchase.
it's
Um,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
love that stuff. Yeah.
Let me see. There's one more question that I'm gonna read. Um, do you work in clay at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, equally.
When did you decide to design? Like, when do you decide to design in clay instead of like drawing?
Honestly, it's like with everything. The way I approach a project
Mm-hmm.
is, and this is where that you can't really tell. I can't tell anyone my process per se because it changes for the project. And there was one project that it's on my website. This the first project character that you see, and it's for this project that is for a failed version of BioShock, right?
Right.
And the director Gore Verbinski came to me and asked me to do some stuff for him. And so what I did, I just built armatures instead of drawing. I just built the armatures and let them sit there. And I built armatures that were big. They were nothing. They were just there, but they were nailed to. They were solid. They were anchored to their bases, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that it had to be on the architecture of a human. So I had to go from human. I got I already got the brief from the director, and I knew what I was going to do, the world that I had to play in for this character. And I just started throwing clay on there, right? And I made sure that I had one day to sculpt each one, right? All right.
Right.
So I would sculpt one a day, and I would just bang it out. Then I'd photograph it, illustrate over it, and I had to do it as fast as if I was doing 2D stuff, right? So, but it was 3D, so it was going to take a little bit longer. But it was real 3D, not digital 3D.
Right.
And then, and I hated, honestly, I know a lot of your people like digital 3D, and that's cool. I do not. I like working in stuff that I can actually touch, right?
Right.
And I like design being done analog. And I think analog design is still the only way. I think anyone that works digitally has to be able to perform on paper, because there is a difference in the level of artwork that you get from the person that understands actually how to actually make something, and versus a person that doesn't, that is completely virtual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference, and there's a massive divide. Literally, most of the modelers that I work with are all guys that know how to touch clay. Outside of that, I don't work with any, that are purely digital, because I look at the difference, and it's like sculpture light. But I'm tangenting. But
Well,
but my but yeah, so I will sculpt. Look, I've been sculpting since I was 14. So it's just something that I do. It's the easiest thing for me to do. It's even easier than drawing.
Right.
So I've never really pursued it as my number one. For some reason, drawing is a little bit harder for me. So I've always pursued it because it didn't like me as much. Is kind of like the bad boyfriend syndrome. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I went after it, pursued drawing harder, and I love drawing so much, and it's easier for me to make a living drawing than it is to make a living with sculpting. So I sculpt only for myself.
Yeah, there's this and there's something about the traditional media that as you said, it's the hands-on experience for an artist that basically makes it very special. But it's also, for what I've noticed from the audience point of view, like if I look at something that was painted digitally,
Yep.
I can recognize the artistry of behind doing that.
Right.
But if I see something equally impressive, but done traditionally, whether it's a painting, sculpture, or a drawing, there's much more appreciation that comes along with it. I think the major reason is that, well, the easiest one to sort of pinpoint would be no Control Z, obviously.
Right.
You cannot make mistakes. So the moment you reach the artist, the mastery of, creating something very beautiful in the traditional media, you know that this person is a real deal,
Right.
Because there are certain things in traditional media you just cannot fake. There's no way you will be able to do that. You have to know what you're doing. Right. Whereas with digital media, there's so many, tools and aspects that you can use in order to fake the outcome. And I guess that's the major difference.
Yeah. No, I mean, plus, like if you look, the big plus for us back in the day was to be able to present the drawings to the actual client.
Yeah.
The actual drawings to the client, right? So they would see the drawings, the size of the drawings, right?
Yeah.
It presented in front of them, and they would go like, "Whoa!" and they would hold them and look at them, and they would be impressed. You would, because there is a presence versus a print.
Yeah.
The print doesn't have anything, but you show them the drawing, they're going, "Whoa, this is real, huh?" It's real all of a sudden.
Yeah.
When you show print or something on the screen, there's there's nothing precious there to them.
Yeah.
So they don't fall in love with it. They won't. They don't.
Maybe that's one of the reasons why some of the old school production designers are still printing out stuff, not showing on the screen. That might be one of the reasons.
If there's when you would go into a room and you would see the drawings literally pasted up on the walls.
Yeah.
Man, they would walk in, they go like, "Whoa," kind of a thing.
Yeah. We had that during Tron. Like all of the artwork, all the finished art would be up the walls. It was fucking awesome to see that stuff.
That's what you do. I mean, you know what I did for Mighty Joe Young? I printed the drawing that became the design for Joe. I printed him on all fours. He was 9.5 feet tall. So I had it Xeroxed up to that size. So when the director walked in, there's his gorilla in front of him at scale, right?
Yeah.
And he was sitting there looking at it like, "Whoa," It was awesome. I mean, Rick was losing his mind because of the scale, he was loving it. I mean, it was just like, it was so cool, but it's way better. I mean, if you were to see that on the screen, no presence, none. Yeah. So boring.
I'll address the last question because there was one more. The essence of it basically, because it was, I think, asked twice, was whether it's a good idea drawing time to time, or maybe waiting and then focusing time, or waiting, gather some time you have free and then focusing on it. I would say it depends on your schedule. If the only thing you can do is draw time to time, just spend that time drawing. Like if you really want to learn, then instead of thinking and getting ready, just do it. And I would say the most productive you're going to be if you can block the longer time to do something, but doing something rather than nothing is always going to be better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I draw at after work. I'll draw at whenever I stop. And that's 4:00 in the morning sometimes. So most of the posts that I'm doing
super late. They're crafting them for Europeans.
That's right. That's right. For all your Polish people out there.
Yeah. Fun times. All right, dude. Let's wrap it up. I held you for a little longer than I normally try to do. I try to wrap things up usually in an hour, but all the conversations kind of go over time because they do.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm a talker anyways. When I start talking about this.
Yeah, dude, it was super fun to talk with you,
Oh, cool, man.
And it was one of the, we've never had a chance to talk before. No. And this is an occasion to talk. I think we should talk more because you're super fun to talk with. Yeah,
are you local now in Los Angeles area?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you and I are going to get together for a cup of coffee now.
We should. We definitely should.
Or for lunch for sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because now, look, and I'm going to say this here. I love your work. I love your style and how you do your stuff.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Great stuff.
Still learning.
I mean, you're the perfect guy. I mean, the project is perfectly tailored for you to work on that for the Ghost in the Shell, man. I mean, honestly, this is like for me, it was Men in Black. This is your movie. You know what I mean? It's perfectly tailored for you.
Yeah.
And your stuff, beautiful stuff that you do.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I can't wait to release it because I think it's the best work that I've done so far. And honestly, the things I'm learning right now, like I jumped into ZBrush a little more and learning like hair and fur and like all that stuff. I wish I knew it before, dude. Like if I was in that show and knew that would be so much better. But anyways, it is what it is. We learn and grow. So
tell Darren to do a science fiction project. That way we could work together.
All right. Yeah.
That's not Tron. That's not Tron. Okay. Tell him to get over Tron already. It's over. Yeah. It's been done.
All right. I'll message him and see what he says.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Tell him to write me already. I haven't talked to him in a while. I have to bug him. I have to get together and give him a hard time. Okay. All right, man. Well, thanks for the interview here. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun times. And thanks for everyone who joined us live. And, obviously you can watch it after the stream ends. And, anyways, good times. And let's wrap it up here. Thanks a lot for your time, dude. And we should definitely going to talk more. Yep. And then anyone else who joined us, thanks a lot. And till the next time.
Yeah, and if you guys are in LA, come by Monster Palooza. I'll be there in April. And you too, man. Come by and say hello. I'll be here in Pasadena.
All right, awesome. I'll try to be there.
Yep. Cool. All right.
Cheers.
All right, man. Bye.